Morning, Mark.
Morning, Nate. How are you?
Good. Good.
Did you
Had
get
a
down to
busy
the ball
week.
game yesterday?
No, I didn't. I was in Kalamazoo.
Ah, it's a pretty little city. How did your interview go?
Pretty well. I would be surprised if they didn't call me back. They seem quite desperate for extra help, to be honest.
Did you see Judd there?
I did not. Judd works in the
Oh,
Grand Rapids office.
oh yeah, that's right. I actually don't know if I know anybody in the Kalamazoo office. So
I was talking to Rob Corder. He is the
yeah.
director of their production department.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah, he's a pretty good guy. They've got a really great location in that office. It is right next to the plaza where all the city events occur.
Yeah.
So when the barbecue, they've got like barbecue that comes out there in the summer sometime. All sorts of different stuff. So it seems like a really great location and a pretty good company to work for.
Yeah, I like the firm, and I like that they have two offices servicing the west side of the state, and I also think Kalamazoo is pretty special.
Very beautifully designed interiors of a 3B building, brick bearing wall, and wood frame construction. They did a really great job with it. So their offices are nice too.
You know,
I always like 3B buildings.
Yeah, they're good. They're rare.
Yeah.
There's actually a Louis Sullivan building there in the city.
Is there? I didn't have much time to spend because, to be honest, after I had spent 2.5 hours driving down there, sitting in an interview for 2 hours, I just was like, I'm done.
Yeah. There's also a Frank Lloyd Wright neighborhood there.
Really?
There's a Jeannie Gang building at the Kalamazoo College campus, and one of my and then of course the most important sort of architecture urban aspects of Kalamazoo is that in the 1960s they closed down the main street there and created the country's first pedestrian-only street mall. That was a fairly novel concept then, and they were pretty progressive, I think, progressive-minded to sort of have the courage to do that. It failed miserably. It killed all of the shops on the mall, but it was pretty dramatic because it was followed by a lot of other places like Boulder, Colorado, which has fared better because Boulder is a university town, right? And has
I think Kalamazoo likes the density
population.
too.
Yeah, you got to have the population. You got to have the density.
Because, like, the city itself seems relatively dense, but it drops off to like 1 unit an acre, like almost instantaneously. So there's no suburban area surrounding it from what I saw, because I was just like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And then all of a sudden there's the city.
Right. Pops up.
So it kind of surprised me. I was just, where is this city? I'm only 2 minutes away. Why don't I see it yet? It doesn't help that they're right on the edge of town. So
I had a really good memory when I was in Kalamazoo when I was a senior, which would have been the fall of 1980. Yeah, pardon me, the fall of 1980. I was selected by Lawrence to participate with one faculty member in a design charrette that it's called the Michigan Architectural Foundation today, but back then it was called the MSA, the Michigan Society of Architects. And Kingscott Associates, a Kalamazoo firm, organized the charrette in collaboration and partnership with the city of Kalamazoo and Downtown Kalamazoo Incorporated, which is kind of like their DDA. And anyways, they wanted to know what to do with Kalamazoo as a city to kickstart it. This was just a few years after the mall had reopened, and it still hadn't taken root. It still hadn't recovered from the loss of business that the closing of the street created several years earlier. So they hired King Scott to create a charrette, and they had Robert Stern, Stanley Tigerman, Merrill Elam of Scoggin, Elam, and Bray, who I later taught with at Mississippi State, and then Frank Gehry. So all four of those architects came in for like a 5-day charrette, and I was on the Frank Gehry team, and that was a really interesting thing. You know, we actually slept on cots in a vacant store on the mall, and our of course we didn't really sleep there very long because we were in charrette mode, but we used a big not a big banquet room, but a banquet room within the Radisson Hotel as our studio. And it was really interesting to watch all of those guys sort of lead their own teams, a team that they had no idea what the talent pool was. And it was clearly a top-down thing. They all came in with their idea already in their pocket.
I didn't realize that had been Kalamazoo. You told us that story a little bit, but I didn't realize it was Kalamazoo.
And if you look, I have the book at my office. If you look at the Frank Gehry monograph from that era, like from 1985, you see the model and you see the drawings, and it's pretty interesting. Good times.
That's really cool. I was wondering why you knew so much about the city. Now now I know why.
I also appreciate it. I have a friend that works there, and I have some other friends that work there as well. And
well, I really appreciated that. I didn't know much about the city, to be honest. So thank you.
Sure.
All right. So getting into everything here. I did manage to finish up the construction cost estimates. I cannot for the life of me remember which ones we discussed and which ones we didn't. I don't know that it matters that much.
I think we got up to the triplexes.
Okay.
No, we yeah, and then I think we had the sixplex to do, and then the mixed use.
Okay. I can pull that up and show you real quick. I can. Oh, there it is. I always lose the screen share button.
I do too.
Okay, sixplex. I mean, pretty straightforward stuff here. All the way down to the bottom. Wow, this one came in a little bit higher than I think I originally estimated. What did I originally estimate for that one? I originally estimated 664. This one came in a lot higher, actually. I must have done something.
Were the areas off, or was did the cost per square foot go up?
Oh, you know what? No. I must have done something wrong here. I don't know. I was looking at it and I was trying to figure out why this one came in so much higher than this. And I didn't have an answer. I think I don't know.
You might want to look at that a little bit more carefully. There might be just one thing that's triggering it.
Yeah, I think my estimate's high on this side.
On the left side, yeah.
Because if that's true, I'm coming in at like 140 plus 145 even 150. So I think that's high. So I'll go back and take another quick look at that one.
Okay. So basically $750,000 north of that.
Yeah. If it was somewhere between 700 and 800, I would probably have been okay with it. But being that it's between 800 and 900, I think I'm too high. Mixed use. I think this one came in right where I was expecting it to. This one was somewhere between 1.1 and 1.2 million, and I think I was somewhere around there cost-wise. Yeah, I was at 1.25.
So right in alignment.
Yeah, so this one was right too. Actually, this one was like right on.
Dead nuts.
Yeah. So I did something wrong with the sixplex. I'll have to go back through and check that one. I don't know what, but all right. So that was that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started looking at everything that I have left to do. And how much time I have to do it.
You have 3 weekends.
Yeah.
Right?
One this weekend.
Yeah.
And 15th, 16th, 17th.
Now, I need to mention 23rd. That I'm in reviews all day on the 22nd.
Yeah.
And the 29th. The 22nd, I'm down at Bowling Green State University. And the 29th, I'm with my own students.
That's fine, because I think I need the 29th and 30th weekend to get my last couple things done. And let me tell you why. So we can meet sometime in that last finals week.
Yeah, we could meet on Wednesday, the 3rd. I think I can do it on the 3rd. That's my normal class night. My normal class is actually
done by that point.
Going to be on Monday, the 1st.
Oh. Okay.
And that will be a long class because it's the group class and then the final sort of farewell talk. But yeah, I'm available to meet that night. So
okay.
why don't we just do that like at 6:30?
Okay, I'm done by May 3rd at 6:30.
Then you're done within the sort of school session,
yeah,
and before finals and all of that.
Yeah, so that works out pretty well, I think. So let me tell you where I'm at and where I'm going. You remember this, right? This thing?
Yes.
So up until this point, I've just been doing simple graphics using that cheat sheet that they gave me to make my life a little bit easier moving forward. So I'm going to have to, I want to translate that into something that looks better than what it does right now, because right now it just kind of looks like it doesn't look very good, to be honest, graphically. So I want to translate my graphics into something that looks a little bit more professional, maybe.
Yeah, just more architectural, not so.
Yeah, so that's
not so accountant balance sheet kind of quality.
Yeah, get rid of the Excel sheet style, basically. So that is going to take me 2 weeks, I think, and then the other 2 weeks, like I can stop screen sharing now.
But you've got all the intel for this, right? You set up the template, you've got the data, you've got the drawing.
I've got most of it, yeah. I'm going back through, and there's one last set. This is what the other 2 weeks are for. So I went back through that. You remember when I was going through the textbook and they were talking about, and I was talking. See if I can actually say what I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of ratios and rates that bankers use and developers use to determine how their projects are being, how successful their projects are being. Some of them were estimated or simplified or were actually literally calculated in that Excel document that they gave me. Others were not. So I went back through the book and pulled out every single one that is typically calculated.
I see.
And I'm going to go back through that and see if I can figure it out in these next 2 weeks. So let's see here. I'm going to try to get that done this weekend and next weekend. And then the 22nd week and then 29th, I'm going to try to get the graphics done.
Gotcha.
Okay? So those things that, let me pull that back up here. So the standard ratios here, the debt service coverage ratio calculated in the document, loan to cost ratio assumed here 25 to 75, loan to value is not one that I've calculated yet, and it's not always required by the banks from what they say, but sometimes it is. And that brings me to the next thing, calculating project value. I haven't done that yet. Because, to be honest, You can't do it until you have a stabilized net operating income, which I will have after I put in my construction costs and all that.
Right.
So project value is calculated by dividing the stabilized NOI over the cap rate, which I'll have to do some research on because it varies from market to market, and they gave me like 10 to 12 different resources to find and research what your likely cap rate's going to be. Don't ask me to explain that yet. I can't yet. But I will have a better idea of what a cap rate is and be able to explain that to you when the time comes. And then the internal rate of return is the next thing. That was estimated with the estimated return on project cost and estimated return on cash. But the internal rate of return is a more complicated equation that that banks use. I may or may not do that one. I don't need it to calculate anything else, so I think the simplified estimates that we've got on this document make for a easier understanding of what's going on. And then the next thing is land value, how to determine how much to pay for land, how much you can afford to pay for the land. And I think, like I was saying earlier in the semester, they calculate how much they can afford to pay for the land after they already know how much the project's going to be making, how much they're going to have to spend on the project. So it's calculated by figuring out the project hurdle rate, which is like, I can't explain that yet either. I just browsed through it to figure out what I needed to figure out and do. And then they use that project hurdle rate to figure out the maximum supported investment, which is the project value over 1 plus the hurdle rate. Don't ask me to explain that yet. Which then leads into the maximum supported investment minus the project costs, not including the land, equals the residual land value, which is what the developer can afford to pay. So that's like a 3-step process.
Yeah, that's interesting.
We'll see if I can have time to do that. I'm gonna do my best to figure that one out, because I just sort of estimated how much I thought the land was going to cost. So using this, I'll actually be able to know how much I can afford to pay, and whether or not I can get the land for that price. That's what makes or breaks a lot of development projects, to be honest.
It does. You know, the dynamic in Detroit is really kind of interesting right now, since the city actually owns, you know, over 80% of the properties. They are selling those properties to the development community, but only in an RFP scenario. Excuse me. And that means that a developer has to go through the exercise you're going through along with an architect to, you know, so you have to have a design. You have to know the pro forma in order to develop a term sheet, and then finally to make the offer on the land. And it's and they're comparing it between developers so that the city can get the most money and the best project. That's another criteria. It's
good for the city, but
yeah,
developers have to spend a lot of money trying to.
That's right, and they do that at risk. So a developer will come to us to ask us to spend the time at risk, at no fee, to do this work. And the city, and even Maurice Cox is saying, well, why do you do that? And we say, well, that's the nature of the business. Get your head out of the sand. That's the reality of how this scenario plays out for you and for all developers. And he's saying, well, we need to get a fund that can reimburse design professionals so that we get the best product out of them, rather than the B team or the C team who's available to do the design, the innovative design. So there's kind of a disconnect between what really happens in offices when these RFPs come to them and when developers ask them to get engaged in a for free and at risk scenario, and what the city expects out of the developers and their design team. It's a conundrum right now. And if there's no pot of money to pay developers to pay their design fees, then we will continue to get the usual suspects.
The quickest thing that you can put together, because a lot of the developers that we work for, they come to us because we're cheaper than the larger firms. The particular project we're working on in Berkeley is not because we're cheaper, it's because we actually are located in Berkeley and we have relationships with.
Yep.
So that's why we're doing that one. But we've done a few master planning projects, and it's amazing how quickly they want things done.
Absolutely.
Because the quicker they can get it done, the less money they have at risk.
That's right.
So
that's actually good for us, but it also, it rubs up against
other clients, other projects.
Yeah, because those guys get backburnered, but also, we don't want to do just a quick SketchUp model with SketchUp people and SketchUp trees. We put our name on those drawings. We want that architecture to be good. We want those renderings to be sexy. They want to have a little skin on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. That reminds me of.
That's an inherent conundrum too.
You know that that restaurant I was telling you about?
Yeah.
at the beginning of the design phases, when we were just starting to talk to Aaron Ty about his concept for that restaurant in Ferndale, he asked us if we could put together nice renderings for marketing purposes, and he's like, yeah, we can do that, but you're gonna have to pay us for it.
Yeah.
And 6-8 months later, he publishes an article from one of the shittiest SketchUp models I've ever done that we sent to the city just to give them an idea of what we were trying to do. The SketchUp model we used to get through the planning commission. Something extra.
Yeah,
and he used that for
in process.
Yeah, and he used that it was like a processed SketchUp model that he used for publishing to a newspaper.
Oh God! So that's another problem.
And yeah, it was my model, and it just looked like.
Yeah, that's another problem when the in-process sketches are the things that kind of launch the idea to the public, and it's a huge issue because that's the stuff that everyone remembers. Actually, I still remember the original HKS SketchUp model from about 5 or 6 years ago of the new Red Wings Arena.
Do you?
And it was just a basic red barn.
A box.
It was terrible. It was awful. And Hamilton Anderson's name was affiliated with it. And I this was before I worked there, right? And I kind of gave it a, I commented on the post saying, this is totally underwhelming. And now I'm working for the firm. That's one way of getting things to be better. But I mean, it was just, but I now know how that stuff happens. I never understood, because when I worked at Victor's, we didn't operate in this RFP mode and mentality. We had paying clients with capital, and we released drawings when we were, good and ready to do it. But, and they were detailed and drawn to an inch of their life. So it's a different scenario now when developers are under a different kind of time clock and a different degree of exposure to the sort of financial implications of keeping a design team on the hook.
Yeah. So, and then I wrote one last thing down just to remind myself. The key thing that I want to take away from this semester, more than remembering how to do this point blank, because I've got all the tools here to reteach myself how to do it, is that developers use loans as tools to make money. Whereas we use loans to buy a house and let it bleed our money away. They turn those loans around and make money off of them.
Right.
The less cash
they built money machines. They built machines to make money off of people like you and me.
Yeah, the renting income essentially.
Yeah.
The less cash they have to put up front, the more money they make off their investment.
Yep.
The bank is going to get what it gets back because it makes its money off the loan. We
Yep.
make our money off the investment that we have to put up. So the less money they put up, the higher return they get off that money. So
and the stronger their borrowing ability is,
and so they can take on larger projects.
They can take the greater risk in the larger project, or the higher the quantity of projects.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
so. I think you're going to be one of my lecturers for this project, for this class next fall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Would you like to do that? Could you teach all of this in one hour class session?
I can make an attempt at it.
Well, it would be like one building, right? You could do you could do the carriage house, for instance.
Okay. Yeah, the carriage house would be a simple one because it's so small.
Yeah. And because it's small, it wouldn't have a lot of moving parts, and it's something that they're familiar with, and it actually might cause them to become excited about the question of development as it relates to architecture. So yeah, I'm going to put
you're talking about the fall, right?
Yeah. Not any.
I was going to say the summer I'm busy. I need to get my life in order first.
I need to not teach.
You need to
right? I need to have the summer off. So
yeah, me too. Me too, right?
Right.
So that's a really interesting proposal, and I'm flattered by it. And
yeah, you should feel that way. I think you'd have a great time.
I will get back to you on that for sure.
Well, so will I.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of like, and we're doing this in our office. I kind of like the idea of design as kind of a form and typological and morphological thing that we talk about all semester long, to be blended with like the reality of finance, development costs, and real estate. I like enhancing their vocabulary with a talk like this, and so I'm totally open to that, Nate.
Okay. My only reason for pursuing this in the first place was just because it's something that architects don't know, and it's something that I feel like we should understand, because architects are, we're not specializers. We need to know everything.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we can specialize, but
right. But
the
more we know this culture, the better prepared we are to have conversations with them and understand what drives them, where their pain threshold is. Right. I mean, that's really important.
Yeah. Okay.
Good stuff. So, will we see each other next week?
I don't know that we have to, but we can. And then my last thing is I didn't send you any resume or anything yet.
No, I noticed that. Yeah.
I'm going to do that now that I've figured out what projects I'm gonna talk about.
How did you talk about your work with them?
It was pretty conversational.
Okay.
I don't have a formal portfolio like a lot of students do.
Right.
Because I haven't spent the time to make one. I haven't finished that portfolio class yet.
Did they have an issue with that?
No, not at all. I didn't really expect them to either, to be honest.
That's
it was I brought my resume with me. We talked about, myself and what they're looking for, what I'm looking for. And then when the time came, I showed them the 3 different types of projects I brought in a couple projects from my school work, from one from my undergraduate, and then these 2 projects that I've been working on with you. So we talked about that, and then I talked about that house that I've been working on with them, and then I talked with them about some of the work that I do at JSN.
Right.
I chose 4 projects out of the 20 or 30 that I pulled, and then out of the 200 plus that I've worked on. So,
did they talk salary with you?
No, there's probably going to be a second interview. They're a large enough company that they have enough applicants for their positions that I'm pretty sure they're going to call me back for a second interview.
Good.
Because, well, frankly, they're looking at recent graduates, and I think that I can hold my conversations with them at a higher level than most other recent graduates.
Well, sure, because you have all this time with Nowitzki, so I think it's a really that's what separates your candidacy from everyone else.
Yeah, I actually, when I was talking to a lot of the firms at the career fair, I actually had to walk away from a few of them because I simply had too much experience and was going to demand too much in pay for what they were looking for. So, ultimately, what it boils down to is if they actually need help with, like, somebody who can actually, help them produce work.
Sure.
And not all the firms are looking for that. They're just looking for interns.
Right. How interesting. Well, good luck on that. I hope that conversation continues for you. And feel free to send along your material when you have that ready, Nate.
Yeah, I'll put it together and probably send it over either today or tomorrow.
Sounds great. So,
because
we may meet next week, or we may not. And we won't meet the 22nd and the 29th, but we will on Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., May 3rd.
And I will be done.
As will I.
I'll be ready to present everything to you.
Great.
And I don't know if what's his face wants to come along too. Who was it that Martin? I had so much difficulty getting?
Martin? Martin.
I don't know if you. Yeah, I don't know if Martin wants to come along or not.
I can send an invite if you want. I wasn't planning on it.
I don't know. I was just he was so involved in the early planning stages to the nth degree on that.
Well, I understand why I understand that he's just trying to protect the sort of quality of the program in these. I don't think he knows what I do in these things, and
well, I was more or less just I was just starting to get frustrated by it, to be honest.
I
come on, come on.
That was last year, so we're past that.
All right, so yeah, you're welcome to do that if you want. I don't know if he's got the time or anything.
Yeah,
he seemed relatively interested.
Yeah, I'm going to be on campus later this month, anyways, and when I see him, I'll mention it to him.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Have a good week. See you later.
You too.
Bye-bye. Well, I'm waiting to see if any of my students from my studio, I'm going to give them till 10 at quarter after. But I'm done with Nathan.
In my shadow.
Little Bella.
Here she is. There's a little bell. I think you gained a couple of lbs. Right, Mark?
What?
I think she's gained a couple of lbs.
She's tiny.
We think, yes, she is. Because she's not really a beagle. Look at it. The body. Yes, she is. So with it. She is.